Hello and welcome to the CX Files podcast. I'm your host, Mark Hillary. This week I'm speaking to Sarah Metcalfe about employee experience and improving management in the CX environment. Sarah's the Chief Happiness Officer at Happy Coffee Consulting. She's originally from Canada, but is now based in Cambridge in the UK. She's also the head of customer service at Sure Petcare, managing a customer service team that works across borders using several languages. But for this podcast, she's speaking in her capacity with Happy Coffee Consulting. I saw Sarah speaking at a conference in Barcelona recently, and she was emphasizing the role of management in creating a work culture that allows companies to achieve a great customer experience. I wanted to learn more, so I called her at her base in Cambridge to catch up. Okay, so let's go straight to the interview. I've seen you speaking about employee experience recently, and clearly the experience of employees matters a lot more in customer experience than in many other industries because, you know, here we're talking about people that are directly in front of customers, and you can't afford for them to sound as if they really don't care about being at work. So how do you get people to care about what they're doing? I mean, is that something that you hire people who like to be helpful, or is it more like an ongoing training process?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, actually. But I think it's really important to hire for attitude. You can train for skill. I think there's very few things that we actually need to hire people for skills, but especially in customer experience. And we know that, you know, that piece now about us needing people with emotional intelligence and ability, empathy, all of those things which are coming to the forefront. So I think the most important thing is, you know, hiring the right people. We look for the kind of people who are passionate about helping, you know, who enjoy that. In our contact center, you know, we're quite lucky. We deal with pets, so people can be quite passionate about that. But really our interviews are much more conversational, listening to stories. And then I came across this idea years and years ago about lunching people. So it's quite easy in an interview situation to, I guess, answer questions in the right way. You know, you kind of know what you're getting. But your real personality comes out if you're sitting and having a conversation with, you know, 9, 10, 11, 12 people. So that's, for me, is really key is how they behave and interact with their other members of staff. But yeah, for me, it's very much hiring the right person, and then we can train them to do just about anything.
Okay, and so the very formal, traditional kind of interview doesn't really work for revealing personality then, I guess.
Exactly. And in a, you know, in a role where your job is to actually create experiences for people, then your personality, how you feel, how you interact with other people, your levels of empathy, your understanding, those are all key.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I mean, that sort of plays into the culture at work as well. And this is something that a lot of business journals and academics have talked about recently, saying that as you look at the sort of millennial, Generation Z generations, they don't want to work for a company that they don't identify with. Have you experienced this, and what are you doing about it to sort of frame the culture of the company and make it actually aligned with the kind of place that people want to work?
Yeah, I think it's really important. So first off, to, I guess, deal with the younger employees, millennials and Gen Zers. I think, you know, I think they've got it right. We've got it wrong. I really kind of, I think you heard me probably say I call bullshit on that. You know, the kind of bad rap they get. I would say some of my hardest workers are those people. They are so passionate. They've got so much energy and enthusiasm when you know, they have found the thing that gives them meaning. You know, people want to do meaningful work together with great people. So creating that culture. And then again, that hiring piece comes into it. So hiring people who agree with that. And it's not about creating a bunch of robots, but there's lots of different cultures out there. And so if you don't fit in with the culture of your company, then you should be going and finding one where you do, because if you're the odd person out, you won't be feeling massively happy at work. But imagine if you found a workplace where you felt like you did belong, and then everything about you becomes much more important to the company as well. So it's about finding the right fit both ways for the company and the person. And I think that the piece around sort of like creating a great culture, it's not about the perks, the bonuses, the free smoothies, or I think you heard me say nobody goes home from work and says, I got 2 apples out of the fruit bowl today, and that's what makes them happy at work, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's about hiring the right people, training them really well, giving them the resources to do the job they want to do, and essentially giving them the autonomy and the ability to do that. So it's really important to give them freedom within guidelines. I think those are all pieces that when people tell that story about culture or whatever, they forget to put in the really important pieces. And then that's why people take it as being fluffy, because they think, well, we just need to make more ball pits. And that's, that doesn't actually do it. But, providing the skills and resource for people to do a great job and then letting them do it is really, I think, all people are after. Mm-hmm. Everyone comes to work wanting to do a great job. So we should probably stop preventing that from happening.
Okay, yeah, and I suppose one of the main things there is how do managers know exactly what their team is thinking, and what do they think and what do they want? The traditional route to this has been the evaluation, the sort of quarterly or even annual evaluation, but they rarely seem to be very useful. And a lot of companies, I've seen a lot of advisory firms advising companies to just drop them because they don't really work. So what does actually work?
It's so simple. Go and ask them, right? Go and speak to your staff. That's the most important way to do it. Managers need to be ensuring that they have a connection with their people. You know what's wrong in your company. You know what's wrong with members of your staff. If you don't, then you're not actually managing. You might be doing operational work, but you're not managing. Managing people is about coaching them and caring for them and understanding for them. Gary Vaynerchuk has come out and said the most important question that any manager or owner of a business can ask is, how can I help you? Not how can I help you at work or how can I help you do better in your job, but how can I help you as a person? And so that's it. That we were talking earlier, my consultancy is called Happy Coffee Consulting, because I think the easiest way you can make your company happy is by going and having a cup of coffee with a different member of your staff and asking them about it. And just putting those really small kind of pieces back into our day-to-day operation. I really believe managers, Henry Stewart from Happy Limited, great kind of thought leader in this space. He always starts his conferences asking the question, how many people think people work better when they feel good about themselves? And, invariably everyone puts their hand up. And then you say, in how many companies is a manager's role to make people feel good about themselves? And then virtually nobody puts their hand up. So we know these things to be true, but what that means is you have to give your managers time to manage, which is, something that in traditional workplaces, we don't. You're really good at your job, so you become a manager, but then you have to do your job, and then you're expected to manage in 0 time. But actually that's, should be 80-90% of your time to do it properly. Mm-hmm. So long answer to a short question, but also short answer, go and talk to them, go and talk to your people.
Yeah.
They'll tell you. Yeah. And if you're there on the floor, if you're walking the floor of your business, you'll know, if something's not right.
Mm-hmm. And that really means then that you need good, engaged managers who not only understand the operation, but they're also out there talking to their team as well. So that seems quite unusual. To find managers who are really good at communication and understand the systems as well, So how do executives manage the line managers that are just sort of somewhere in the middle? They're not terrible, but they're not great either.
You could fire them if they're not great at their job. Bad managers lead to huge levels of stress for people. We're all susceptible to emotions, right? Emotions are contagious. negative emotions are the most contagious. And a manager's emotions are the most contagious in that environment, just because of how humans interact with each other. So, realistically, you know, I think if you have a bad manager who's making people's lives miserable, you should definitely fire them. But if you get those, as you said, those somewhere in the middle managers, I'd probably find out why. I would ask them why, because again, the point I made before, a lot of people are really great at their jobs, but the next career step is to be a manager. And my husband's an engineer. I have nothing against engineers, and I've seen great engineers who are great managers. But there's lots of people who are great engineers and aren't great managers, but they have nowhere else to go in their career once they've gotten to a point. And we get that with a lot of stuff. Just because you're the most amazing coder doesn't necessarily make you fit for managing people. Managing people is a whole different skill set. So you need to give them some training, give them some support, find out if they like managing people. It's a great story about a company called Cougar Automation, who sent all their managers on a course, and all their managers came back and went, actually, we hate managing. We love doing our job, so we're going to stop being managers. And actually, maybe there's a point about if you've got a lot of management levels, you know, flattening that structure, flattening that hierarchy. There's some great kind of matrix management that's happening now. So you've got people who are your task manager, and then people who are your people manager. So there's tons of places and ways that you can reorganize that. And I really strongly believe that that's what organizations should be heading towards. And again, you know, people who don't get trained on management quite often think their job is to know everything or be the holder of the keys, and put barriers in place because they don't understand that that's not actually what makes a good manager. You know, they feel that, they see that. But yeah, bad managers lead to really high stress levels. High stress levels at work lead to, you know, are correlated to, you know, actual deaths, you know, higher risks of cancer, blood pressure, stress, depression. So it's not really a trivial thing. It's something that we should be, all businesses should be looking at and thinking about, really changing the way that management structures.
Yeah, and at the very least, you get a poorly performing team and people quitting just because of the manager as well.
Exactly. Yeah, not to mention the operational cost of a bad manager, right? What's that? 70% of people leave because of a bad boss.
Yeah.
So, you know, you've got all of that actual cost to the business, and that person could be a really amazing, you know, I joke about firing them, and obviously, yeah, if they're bad, you should fire them, but maybe they're bad because they hate being a manager, but don't know that they can just be great at their job. And maybe there's someone else who isn't so great at their job, but is awesome with people, right? Yeah. You could so easily just swap that round, and it would have so much positive benefit.
Okay, so if you were mentoring somebody that maybe you had promoted them to be in their first management role, so they've come out of operations, first time they need to be managing people on the team, what would you say to them as the first sort of skills or areas they need to focus on to actually try and become a good manager?
I'd say coaching, you know, listening skills, coaching skills, learning about servant leadership, that actually as a leader you know, we need to not be doing better than everyone else. Our job is to remove the barriers for other people. And again, it's about understanding. So taking some time, or asking for time, or understanding that what you need to be giving to people is time, which is the most precious resource we all have at work right now. And then building it into, for me, I think the key thing is, because it's so easy for anyone, I do it, everybody does it, you know, to go, oh, I need to deliver on this outcome. And I will get to having a chat with someone later. But, you know, building that, actually, if you're starting out, you're in a great place. You can build that 5 minutes, 10 minutes with each of your staff on a daily, weekly basis. You can build that into your calendar from the start, right? Go and sit down and ask them, what can I do for you? right?
Yeah.
And I bet the answers will surprise you. When I took my team off the phones and gave them the time to think about stuff, they came up with, I think it was something like 37 really small, niggly things that were bothering them, or that were barriers to them getting their job done. And so then I just had, that's my next job, right? Get rid of all those things. That makes everyone more productive and happier. And right. So, they're the best source of information for you. So yeah, listening, coaching. I think Google came out with their kind of top 10 or 12 skills of being a manager, and only one of them actually related to having any knowledge about the job at all.
Yeah. So it's guiding people and removing all the barriers rather than being the boss, just pointing what things that should be done.
Absolutely. Because as managers, how could we possibly know everything? That's crazy. And that's not our job.
Thanks for listening to the CX Files podcast. Please take a moment to review the podcast because this helps other listeners to find it. And if you have any suggestions, then get in touch with me on Twitter or LinkedIn. I'm at Mark Hillary with 2 L's, or just search Google for Mark Hillary.